Anybody ever remember the when years gone by, and let's not talk about how many, but you had a telephone, you had one telephone in the house, and you had to get permission to use it. And when you did get permission to use it, you'd pick it up, and that old battle axe up the street would be on the party line. Anybody remember that? You rascal. I know better than that, I'll tell you what. I remember those days, and a phone didn't play cute little songs and things like that. It went ring, ring, ding-along, ding-along, ding-along. And what was, anybody remember what their ring was? 2 longs, 1 short? Anybody, or two shorts, 1 long, something like that, or 1 long, 1 short? Anybody remember those days? I mean, then you might remember this song, and if you do, you can sing on the chorus with me or something there. Central's never busy, always on the line. You may hear from heaven almost any time. 'Tis a royal service, free to one and all. When you get in trouble, give this royal line a call. Telephone to glory, oh what joy divine. I can feel the current moving on the line. Built by God the Father for His love and all. We may talk to Jesus through this royal telephone. There will be no charges, telephone is free. It was built for service, just for you and me. There will be no waiting on this royal line. Telephone to glory always answers right on time. Telephone to glory, oh what joy divine. I can feel the current moving on the line. Built by God the Father for His love and all. We may talk to Jesus through this royal telephone. Do you know it? Got to try to sing the verse. Telephone to glory, oh what joy divine. I can feel the current moving on the line. Built by God the Father for His love and all. We may talk to Jesus through this royal telephone. We may talk to Jesus through this royal telephone. Amen. These days, we've had a busy year, and in fact, we've had a busy past 2 years. I feel like I've been on the road more than the yellow line. We've covered about approaching 40,000 miles this year, and trying to work toward finishing raising our support. You understand it's a little bit difficult to raise support because you're U.S. missionary. It's just the nature of things. I knew that when I started, and I started because I believe God, if God calls, He'll enable and He'll provide. And so we've continued and stayed the course. And also we've done this, we don't usually call it deputation, we call it pre-field ministry, because we do not want to just travel the country and accomplish nothing. We want to serve the Lord and minister as we go. And so that's been our heart's desire. along the way. But we stand at about 50%. Now, that is, you say, boy, that's not much. You've been working this thing 3 years. I talked to a friend that's doing something similar, and he's at 23% after about 4 years. And so it's just kind of the nature of things. But we've reached a point in time, and God's changed my heart a couple of times in the way that I'm doing things, and I'm just trying to, sometimes you just try to work smarter, not harder. And so I've prayerfully considered, and God's given me different direction and said, change your direction here in this area in the way that you call and approach. And we've done that. We moved just to taking referrals only, and we filled our schedule, and the Lord took care of that. And by the way, it always is good when God writes the schedule. Yep. I got canceled this past Wednesday night, but before the day was out, God had already given us another meeting. And I didn't ask for it. Pastor just asked. He said, "Where will you be? Where will you be tonight?" I said, "Don't know. Might come hear you." And he said, "No." He said, "I need a break." He said, "You come preach for me." So I did. And so we've got now an opportunity. I believe the Lord's kind of changing our focus a little bit and moving us, inching us more toward our eventual goal. And so in January, we're going to take a 6-week project in Kansas, in a town called Coffeyville, Kansas. There is a church there, and they put in a little mission apartment and want us to come and test drive that thing for the first time. And we're excited about that. They patterned it after a Wyndham resort. Somebody say amen right there. I think I can live with that. And but it's a church that's been a recovery project for several years. They've got a building now. They bought a school building, got this entire complex for $100,000 in the little town there. It's incredible buy, and they've renovated a lot of it and really made it look very modern and very much like a church. And so he's saying, "Brother Eastrage, we really need some help. We need to get structured in some areas, and I'm going to be working with his people. I'll be working with them 1 or 2 services a week and then preaching out, and he's helping me get some other services there." So it's going to allow us to do something. It's going to allow us to continue the work of raising support, but it's also going to allow us to actually engage in a project and begin to accomplish some things that we want to for our ministry. We're going to kind of split the difference and kind of have more of a hybrid ministry. And I really believe that's where the Lord's moving us toward in the year ahead. I do have a schedule through June, through the first part of June. That schedule is a lot more sparse than this year, but I really feel like the Lord's going to give us some opportunity to begin to develop some of the plans and sit down and put on charts and paper a layout of the things that we want to accomplish in the years ahead. And I need to get this done in a hurry. I'll be 58 next Saturday. So, I don't feel old, but by reason of time, I've got to get the job done. And then also, we've got a gentleman by the name of Brother George Smith that called me, and Brother George was one of my supporting pastors until he resigned and went into missions. And he said, "Brother Eastrage," he said, "I've really been praying about direction in our ministry." And he said, "Can I be CPR Ministries too?" And I told him, "No, I wouldn't hear of it." I said, "Of course you can, brother." He's very talented at stopping the bleeding. We're going to sit down and try to work together and establish something in tandem. Our eventual goal is to have 3 or 4 men and work in a tandem effort between us so that we can have someone to go in initially, then have some ongoing things. Paul made 2 missionary journeys. And I believe that the second missionary journey is the one that's really missing in the way we do things today. And so I really want my focus to be that second journey. In fact, instead of CPR, I almost called it Second Journey instead. So we want to get this plan together where we can do this. Also, one of the things I'm going to be putting together this year and trying to launch this year is a thing I call the Life Support Program. Now, a missionary has, and I guess you probably understand this, a missionary has to raise his own living, but also for the ministry that he carries on, he needs finances for that. For instance, a missionary in a foreign field may need a van to run a van ministry with, okay, or bus. And so out of his support, he finances perhaps rent for a building. He finances the purchase and upkeep of a van. There are a number of different things he does. Well, mine is the same way, and so I've really prayed about a plan for this. God's given me something that I think will work, and I'm going to be asking churches to have CPR Sunday, one Sunday a year. And I'm hoping that they'll do it. I'm going to suggest the month of March as being the month to prepare and plan for this, and to execute this, and to have CPR Sunday and try to raise a gift of at least $250 for a one-time-a-year gift. Now, it can be churches that support us, churches that don't support us, that say, we don't want to support you, but we do like the idea of financing the work, or we wouldn't give to you every month, but we could do this once a year. And if they raise $5, you know what we'll do? We'll take $5, apply it to ministry, and just shout the victory. And just thank God for it, okay? Little boy gave me, my wife found a penny today. The little boy gave me the other day. He came up to me, he said, Brother Eastrage, he said, could I give you this to put down on your ministry? And I said, you bet I can. I'll tell you where it's going in a few minutes. And so I want to get really, I want to initially, our initial goal is 100 churches that just that one CPR Sunday a year, that they'll give a gift of $250 or more. Now, if 100 churches would do that, that's $25,000. Now, with this year, whatever comes in this year, Heritage Baptist Church in Opelika, Alabama. It is a community of Opelika, Auburn. Anybody ever heard of the Auburn Tigers? All right, I am an Auburn fan. Auburn, yes, I know there are Buckeye fans present. Yes, there are. I did pastor in Ohio, so I can tolerate them anyway there. And I am for Buckeyes when they play another team that we know about that's in this region of the United States. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I don't want the church to vote to drop my support tonight. But in Opelika, Auburn area, they are the twin cities, and they're situated just like this. They're very close, and they adjoin each other in the center. And the Auburn area has no independent Baptist church, and probably the best thing there would be a liberal Southern Baptist church. Now, there is a little independent Baptist church way out in the country away from town, but it does not reach the urban population there. It is a community that is growing by leaps and bounds. Several years ago, God allowed, I had prayed for a church to go there, for a church planter to go there, and prayed about going there myself for 10 years. And just, God never gave me liberty about going. I would have always been to the community. There was the church we grew up in, and I would have become an enemy to that work. And I just did not feel like that was good. You know, a prophet's not without honor except his own country, and I really felt that it just was not my calling to go there. But I prayed diligently about it, and each time they would get without a pastor, they'd try to call me, and I would help them get a pastor and advise them about people and such. And so finally, they didn't do their homework very well, and they got a pastor, and it was ugly. And the church closed its doors. But you know, I believe God shut it down. But in the meantime, in the process, when all this is going on, God crossed my path with a church planter named Jeff Jones, and Brother Jeff, and he said, I believe God's calling me to Alabama to start a church. He said, there ain't nobody in Alabama needs a church. Church on every corner in Alabama. I said, let me talk to you about a little town called Opelika, one of the fastest growing communities in southeastern U.S. And so he came there, and we worked with him, and in my mother-in-law's living room started the Heritage Baptist Church. And so it's there now. They went through some church planter left. They had an interim. That interim left. They were in critical condition, just really wondering if they were going to survive. And I was able to step in and help them get a pastor. Pastor Thad Endicott's now there. This is a church plant that's running 50 in a Sunday school room. So to speak, in a little convenience store building, elbow to elbow on Sunday morning. They need a building. They need $600,000 in that community to get what they need. And so we're praying about helping them. And so whatever comes in on the life support project this next year, I want to give to Heritage Baptist Church. I'd love for it to be $25,000. And that's money that doesn't go in my pocket. It goes into the work of CPR ministries and into a project like that, or a group of projects. And we, of course, will keep everybody posted on what those are on the newsletter. Then I'd like to add to that the advanced life support groups. I'd like to have some advanced life support teams that would go into works and be involved in anything from refinishing furniture to remodeling to facilities to landscaping to outreach campaigns where they go and do something like the church, where the Shirley's Church did for you folks or with you folks. I would like to have teams that do these various things. I got one church that has already agreed to furnish all of the scripture that we need. They bind them and send those out. They've agreed to customize and do those. It's a little tiny church. I'm really interested in getting small churches to do big things. Amen. Because small churches just tend to vegetate. And I believe that one of the things that will help them grow and get back on the map is for them to stop just trying to survive and start giving. Hey, give and it shall be given unto you. And so I really believe, and the Lord loveth the cheerful. You know, He'll take you from a tightwad just the same though now. Okay? Just remember that. When the offering plate comes by, He'll take you from a tightwad. So if we want... You folks sure do make it easy to talk, I tell you. I just love you guys. But we want to try to get some churches involved in actually doing the work of CPR ministries and engage them in this and bring to bear so that we can come into a situation and have step one of stopping the bleeding, step two of coming in, doing some training, doing some organizing, and getting things structured, and that's what I like to do. And then step three of offering them, say, for the next 2 years, we got this and this and this and this. Here's VBS for you in a package deal. Here's a music campaign to teach your people music and to help your music director. And here's a revival meeting, all expenses paid for this work. Here is this, and try to give them a couple of years of life support. Now, that's my goal. Now, you say, where is all that going to come? I'm telling you, this is something God set before me. I may be crazy. I don't know. But it's better to shoot at something and miss it than it is to shoot at nothing and hit it. And so that's what I'm trying to do. Then I've got one other project I want to do this coming year. It actually begins January and February of 2016. And it is a project where, and I told the guy that designed prayer cards for me to start with, I said, don't put a U.S. map on it. Because I want the ability, if God opens doors outside the United States, because there are works and mission works outside of America that need, some type of life support as well. And so we'd like to be able to do that. There are American military works all over the country of Germany. And I preached there several times. And so we want to be engaged in those works. There are works in the Caribbean that I've worked with. And so I'd like to be able to continue to do some of that. I never anticipated, but a missionary that I personally support in the Philippines, it's in Baguio City, several years ago, he said, Brother Eastrage, I really wish you'd consider coming and bringing one of the Sunday school leadership workshops you do to the Philippines. And I do an 8-hour clinic. I do it for churches here in the United States. I do 2 hours on Friday night. I do 6 hours of instruction on Saturday on how to build and grow Sunday school and how to be a good teacher and all kinds of different topics. And I hammer away for 8 solid hours and lose my voice and my feet hurt, and we have a great time. And I've done tons of those things. And our largest one's been 38 people. We did one in Wichita, Kansas, 38 people, teachers and workers. Great material. And some of the churches, some of them just catch on and go zoom ahead. And they call back and say, wow, this has just got one church in Alabama. They said, man, we're growing again. We're moving forward. We're seeing things happen. So some do and some don't. But this missionary asked me, he said, would you bring that to the Philippines? I said, well, I told him what everybody says when you don't know what to do and you really just figure that's not the best idea right now. I said, well, I'll pray about it. Okay? That's a great excuse, okay? Well, we'll pray about it. And so I said, I'll pray about that. And I did. I prayed about it. And it never really came to fruition until a few months ago, and he contacted me. He said, I'm in the States. I need to talk to you. He said, we're ready. He said, January 2016, we're ready. You need to come. Here's what we want to do. And I said, well, what kind of group are we talking about? He said, I'm talking about 500 to 600 teachers and workers in one group. Now, that's anticipated. It may turn out to be 100. I don't know. But he said, I would anticipate a group of 500 trainees. Now, if each one of those has 10 students in their class, that's 5,000 people whose lives we can touch. We can commit some things to faithful workers who'll be able to teach others also. And so I told him, I said, brother, I believe that God's in it now, and we'll make the plans and go. And so I called my pastor. I had to call him a few minutes later. I said, Pastor, I got a call from a guy. I said, I want to try to get him. He's in the States. He needs a meeting. He's going to be in our area. Can he come by the church? He said, absolutely, come in. I'll let him present his ministry. And I helped him get a couple of meetings. And I said, Pastor, he's asked us to come and do the Sunday School Leadership Workshop there in the Philippines. I said, I guess I'll have to try to raise some additional funds to do that. He said, well, you got the first $1,000 right here. So that all happened within about a 10-minute period. I believe God might be in that thing. I like it when the Lord steps in. And so now we have, and I had another lady just the other day give us $50. And so now, here's where it is. I've got $1,050 and 1 cent. And I'm going to keep it just that way. I'm going to keep that 1 cent on there because I want that little guy to know that he made a difference. And so you pray about that endeavor. We'll be getting some material out to all our supporters and friends across the country and around the world about that endeavor. I'm just anticipating it's going to cost about $4,000. I don't know. I don't have a clue. I've got to do the math on it, and I've got a lot of things I'll need to do. We've got to print the material there on site in the Philippines for them. We've got to print these books, and so we've got a lot of work to do in the next 12 months, but you pray about that. So those are some of the things that are at. We thank God God's blessed. We've seen more people in the past on this tour since we left home in September. We've seen more people in the altars than we've seen since the beginning of the ministry. We really have. And now, not everybody gets saved, and I preach to the church an awful lot. I really do. And so you say, are you preaching to the lost mostly? No, I preach to the church most of the time. But I really feel that's my ministry, and that's what God's called us to do, and I do that often. I do preach the lost sometimes. But thank God we've seen one saved on the tour here. And we've seen a lot of folks in the altar and people getting help and some things that I couldn't tell you about for confidentiality that God has just done, and we've seen some folks really get some help. And so we are excited about the future and embracing this thing wholeheartedly and praying that God will just use us in spite of ourselves. I don't have as much time as I used to have, but I'm as young as I'll ever get. And so we just keep going on. And I'll prayer requests right now. What can you pray for? Pray that God will help us finish this job. I would like to see 70% of the support by the 1st of June. By the time this schedule kind of goes slack, I'd like to see 70%. And then I would really like to see 100% by year's end. At the end of 2015, by the time we go to the Philippines, I'd like to see 100%. If the Lord would be so gracious to grant that. And so that's one thing, of course. Another is, I want to thank you, of course, for praying for my wife's health. Just continue to pray that we found the right combination of things, that it has worked and is working, and that it will continue to work. When 6 months come, when the 6-month mark comes, she can drive an automobile again. So we're at about 4.5 months to go now, something like that. And we're praying that 4.5 months will turn into 4.5 years and 10.5 years and 20 years, and that we'll never have to deal with this again, and that God will let her just continue on and work. We've seen a lot of improvement there, and we thank God for that. Just pray also about these projects that we've got coming up. Got one thing that's coming up, a need that's coming up in next month that we got, and some medical things got to deal with, and just pray about that. Going to get my wife's eyes examined. She wants to get a better look at me. And I'm going to let her. Somebody say amen, fellas, right there. Isn't that good? That'll preach right there. And so we're looking for God to do some things with that. And you just pray for us. We sure would appreciate it. Now, you need this back, or you want me to go ahead? Okay.